On today's show, La Vida es Sueño. Life is a dream, folks, because the San Diego Padres, your San Diego Padres, are 6-0, trouncing the Cleveland Guardians thanks to a return of the King performance from Michael King, the offense stepping up in big ways, another nice showing from the bullpen, and a whole lot more. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for the lovely day known as Wednesday, Hump Day, some would say, April 2nd. As always, I am your host, so sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Arraez. You can follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno. You can also follow me on TikTok at Javios, which I've been slowly updating and whatnot. And be sure to do that, folks. Today's episode, we are recapping last night's game and just doing a little bit of talk about them Padres, because let me tell you, this has been like, I mentioned this a little bit on Monday's show, so I don't want to retread too many of my thoughts, right? Especially for my everydayers. But it really is true that basically from November onwards into like January, whatever, there was a real vibe of like, wow, like why bother playing next year, right? And I was that personally, I wasn't that cynical. I was more like annoyed with baseball as a whole, I think, especially with what was happening with the Dodgers, which I've talked about ad nauseum before. I don't want to repeat myself, but you know, then you had the Nick Pivetta signing, then you had the Jose Iglesias signing, then even to a degree, you had the signings of Jason Hayward and Connor Joe that you said, okay, and then you had Elias Diaz, that was a big one as well. And you were like, okay, like at least we're finally getting somewhere. And I think that what's really interesting is that the Padres are kind of so far showing that you don't necessarily have to have the biggest offseason in the world in order to be successful. In fact, one of the moves that we wanted for the Padres was to bring back Jurickson Profar, and it looks like they dodged a bullet there, right? It turned out that if you already are spending a lot of money on players, if you already have your stars, it's okay to operate like the teams that I make fun of on this show. Right? It's like the Milwaukee Brewers, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Cleveland Guardians. It's okay to operate like that because you have the stars. You have spent money, right? You have made some aggressive moves. After that, once you have the stars in place, you kind of just want to put together a good team. What the Dodgers are doing is a little bit unprecedented in a lot of ways. But what the Padres are showing right now is that I'm starting to believe in them a little bit more as an organization, I think. As an organization that maybe it's not just they're being cheap. Maybe it's not just because they're saying, you know what, we see something in these guys that everybody doesn't. I just think that so far, everybody's kind of had a moment on this team. Even Yuli Gurriel, who I've made fun of so far on this podcast, because I still think that Eggy Rosario, maybe the only reason being because Gurriel plays a little bit more first base. But other than that, I understand that, like, Gurriel did have that big time RBI that gave them the win during this nice winning streak to start their season, right? Everyone's kind of had a moment. I think that's pretty amazing, right? Like, that's pretty fun that through 6 games, everybody's had a moment, some more than others, but this is really, it felt like it's a compact, well-run team. And some things I think are legit, some things I don't. Former being, you know, the Padres bullpen, some of the starting pitching, Tatis, and then the latter being, I don't know how much this Gavin Sheets stuff is going to hold up. I don't know what's going to happen with, some of the bad ball luck they've had a little bit, as we saw last night. But so far, just a lot of good vibes, man. A lot of good vibes for this Padres team. And let's start talking about it more specifically. Now that my little tangent is done, my little bit of a, dare I say, fluff when you're trying to do an essay for college and you decide that I need to extend the paragraph intro a little bit longer because I have to do an 8-page single space in like 2 hours. But may or may not be based on a true story, by the way, from your boy. But folks, let's talk about it. Let's first start 7-0 for the Padres last night. Logan Allen pitching for the opposing team. Not exactly a game that on paper we were afraid of losing, right? This is not a very good pitcher. Former Padre as well, sent over in the Mike Clevenger trade that people might remember. And by the way, low-key, Preller, I was texting a friend of mine, actually. Preller kind of cooked on the Mike Clevenger trade, except for the fact that Clevenger blew out his arm and turned out to be kind of a crappy person and all that stuff, right? But, like, didn't give up too much. Josh Naylor, okay, yeah, I know. But overall, not bad. Anyway, for the Guardians, it's Logan Allen, and for Padres, it's Michael King. And I know that there were some people saying, well, what happened to Michael King? He was so bad that first game. In fact, one of my frequent commentators, that's right, I'm putting you on blast, Tony Sue. This is from 4 days ago. He said, disagree about Michael King. Don't know if he's fully stretched out or injured, but his fastball was barely over 90 most of the time, and not even sometimes. That's very bad for a pitcher like King. His breaking stuff was working, but without an effective fastball, it was tough. And basically, opening day, my thing was like, I didn't not care about Michael King, but for me, he was the type of pitcher that last year you saw. You know, this is not a guy who's used to getting a full starter's workload or operating, frankly, just in general as a starter. Forget innings, just operating as a starter. He basically did that for the first time over the course of a full season last year, right? I know he had some moments, don't get me wrong. He did pitch a lot of innings before that. He had some starts beforehand, but he was still a little bit relatively new. Right? Relatively new in some ways. And it took him a little bit. He had to figure out the combination. He had to figure out his changeup. He had to figure out when to throw his fastball more effectively. All the things that we talked about on the Michael King deep dive before the season. And he was really bad in his first game. Really, really bad. That is true. But I'm pointing out Tony Sue because some people were like, dude, you're like, what are you talking about? He was dreadful in that game. And in my opinion, this is why sample size absolutely matters, because you have games like this, right? Beginning of the season, he only goes 2.2 innings, gives up 3 earned runs, 4 walks, strikes out 3. He gives up a home run as well. Basically implodes the Padres bullpen for the rest of that series, which is another thing that's been remarkable, is that their opening day starter put them in the hole. Michael King. And what does he do last night? He absolutely balls out. Granted, it's not the most deadly lineup in the world, but still 5 innings for Michael King, no earned runs, only 2 hits, 1 walk, and 11 strikeouts, folks. This guy was on a mission, folks. Let me tell you. I don't know what it was, but my man was on a mission. He was like, you know what, Tony Sue? I'm sick of you. I don't know why you made that comment that you don't believe in me after one start. And he looked awesome. On top of the fact that the fastball was a little bit better, it actually topped out in terms of velocity here, if I could bring that up. If I'm not mistaken. At velocity, it topped out at 95.3 miles per hour, so it was a little bit up from the last start. Speed has never necessarily been his big thing. He's not going to be a 98 mile per hour thrower. This isn't Paul Skeens, but generated 18 whiffs also last night. 9 of them going on that fastball, 4 of them on the changeup, 3 of them on the sweeper, 2 on the sinker. He looked in command all game. He had the type of performance that when he's like that, he looks untouchable. The pitches look crisp. You know when like pitchers, it just feels like every single pitch is just like there's a magnet on the, like, it's almost like you're playing Operation, and if you touch the outside corners and whatnot, it's almost like he just drills it right in there at every single spot for all these hitters, including, by the way, some good hitters in this Guardians lineup, whether it be Jose Ramirez, whether it be Steven Kwan, right? He really looked excellent last night. And this is why I think a little bit of an example of why I wasn't freaking out over the opening day start. It was weird, don't get me wrong. 2.2 is still, I understand why people were freaking out. But this is why, because Michael King is a certified stud. This is not a fluke. He has been like this for years with the strikeout potential, and now he's a full-time starter. I just do not see a world in which he's that much worse this year. I do think you could see a little bit of a surge in his ERA, just a little bit, because he does give up a decent amount of hard contact, right? Like, let's be clear. And he doesn't have the best control in the world in the sense that he does have a little bit of a high walk rate, right? We've talked about this before, and that results in the potential for him to have a little bit of a, regression in that regard, right? I'm sorry, not in hard hit rate, but he doesn't have the best velo, and he doesn't have the best control necessarily, 39th percentile last year in walk rate, and he doesn't generate the most ground balls. That's why I think his ERA could go up last year. His hard hit stuff is fine. The ground ball rate, though, all that stuff, it's possible that instead of putting together this season a 2.9 ERA, or maybe some people might be expecting an even better lower ERA after that first year, I think he could be like a 3.4 guy, a 3.3 guy. But that doesn't take away, because I still think he's going to get a lot of strikeouts. He's going to limit hard contact. He's going to be awesome. I am not worried, and last night showed you exactly why, folks. But that's not all that happened last night. We're going to talk about the rest of the game and some of the other observations and some of my ramblings, I guess, on the Padres' state of things. And the state of things, let me tell you, are very, very good, guys. But first, let me just take a second to talk to you about one of our sponsors. And that sponsor, folks, is the legendary people over at a very specific food company, and it is a wonderful one, and that is the fine folks over at Wonderful Pistachios, folks. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller longer. And let me tell you, I like the no shells variety. I like the honey roasted variety. Things are just good, man. Look, again, I'm really trying to be a little bit of a healthy lad. I'm trying to curb my appetite a little bit. So every time I'm like, ugh, I just saw a Taco Bell commercial. I saw a Domino's commercial. Let me get a few pistachios. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I feel a lot better. And they are giving you some protein with that. It's like snack meditation, dare I say, right? Especially when you're cracking open those nuts. So I love all that they got you over at Wonderful Pistachios. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and vibing into the second segment of this show. Thank you, as always, for listening, making us your first listen every day. My everydayers, we love you very much. Remember, again, follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, and reach out to me on there, and you might make it onto the show just like Tony Sue did in the first segment. But folks, let's talk about the rest of the game, because this was actually kind of a wacky game. Yes, the Padres did win 7-0, but it was a little bit scary at one point. And I think what happened here is that the Padres just didn't really show up with driving runners in, at least early on, right? You had the top of the first inning, right? My apologies. The bottom of the first inning. Tatis starts off with a walk. We've talked about him a lot. This guy looks so locked in right now, guys. He does not look as... He's not pressing nearly as much as he did last year. This change to his stance, where it looks like he has an hour of being prepared to swing that bat, instead of before when it's like he's swinging at the last second, and was almost like getting by. And getting by, I mean still performing amazing, by on raw talent and just the athleticism and the build and all those stuff. He looks amazing here. But unfortunately, fielder's choice, and then Manny Machado grounds into a double play. Luis Arraez still looking for kind of his moment so far. Then Xander Bogaerts, he gets a single into right center. Wasn't the most hard hit ball of all time, right? Again, Xander Bogaerts, we're still, the radar is out. I'm hopeful, because he did hit the hardest hit ball that he had in 3 years on Friday. But overall, we're still okay, we gotta wait and see. You know what I mean? This is still a wait and see guy. But bottom line, again, he's also not the type of player that hard hit rate is going to be the be all, tell all sort of thing, I guess is the way to say it, because this is still a player that, when he hasn't performed, when he has performed, he hasn't always had the hardest hit rate stuff in the world. But it's okay. He did have a couple moments. He grinded into a double play later. He hit that one pretty hard. What can I say? The fielder's choice, he hit pretty hard too. But overall, he's still kind of getting there, right? He didn't exactly hit it all that hard. But Bogaerts, the one hit he did have was a 340 expected batting average. So you can do worse. He did squeak it through that infield. Unfortunately, though, not much after that. Jackson Merrill then grounded to a double play. Yuli Gurriel, my one beef on the Padres right now, he popped out. Then you start off the bottom of the third, right? This was kind of the batting average on balls in play game from hell, right? This was just not a game for the Padres. Jose Iglesias draws a walk, getting his first start, by the way, today at second base. That was not, it's not his first game, but his first start. This is not unexpected. This might be one of the reasons why they thought Eggy Rosario might be a little bit, repetitive, right? Because they don't want to have two guys potentially playing second, 3 if you're counting Cronenworth on days off, like he had today. But Iglesias, one thing he does end up showing off in this game as well is the fact that he does have some good speed, and he's just a batting average guy. He's got a decent walk rate, and if what he did last year was at least somewhat legit, I'm personally a little bit cynical on that part. I don't think he's a 130 WRC plus guy like he was with the Mets last year, and an OMG pop star king that he was last year, but really liked what he did last night. Really did. He walked in this one. Brandon Lockridge then rips a double. Really good game for Brandon Lockridge, by the way. Not only does he have the extra base hit, but he also has a nice diving defensive play in the top of the third inning. just immediately proving why he made this Padres team. I had no problem with why he made the roster. He really balled out in the minors last year, and he's got speed, and he's got a pretty good glove out there in left field. That seems to be the Padres' MO. They're like, we just always want to have guys who are going to provide you at the very minimum defensive value. And awesome, right? Like, it has worked for them so far with the defense especially. So good for Brandon Lockridge. Unfortunately, though, Elias Diaz grounded out. Tatis hit into a fielder's choice, and then Luis Arraez grounded out. Not the best, folks. So still annoying. But then, right after that, Carlos Santana pops out. Nolan Jones strikes out. And then Bo Naylor strikes out. There was a really fun moment, by the way, in the top of the second when Nolan Jones, I'm sorry, was it top second? Yeah. Nolan Jones, Bo Naylor, and Gabriel Reyes all struck out swinging. And Don on the call, Don Orsillo, was just like, oh, my, Mud, Mark Grant was just like, say it, man, say it, like all down by way of the K. Like, it was just so exciting. And I think everybody was just super excited to see that our boy Michael King was back. But bottom of the fourth, finally the offense gets started. Clearly, the Padres are getting a little bit unlucky, right? Manny Machado, everybody's hitting Logan Allen. Clearly, he's not able to get anybody to chase on stuff outside the plate. It didn't matter. Manny Machado gets a single. Bogarts grounds into a double play. Blah, blah, blah. And then Jackson Merrill with a shot, his first of the season. I mean, how can you not love this guy, man? How can you not love him? And if there's one thing about Merrill, right, is you saw in the second half of last year his isolated power numbers and everything. He just absolutely found that power swing. And I think that was what was most impressive about Jackson Merrill last year, is that he felt like a guy that was going to hit you maybe 13 home runs his rookie year and just be a good batting average guy, play some good defense. Instead, he did what he did, already hitting his first shot, 432 feet to deep right center. It was the fourth hardest hit ball of the night. 27 out of 30 ballparks, it would have been a home run. So no fluke here, absolute bomb. And it was due, right? The Padres were hitting this guy. And then they come up later. Tatis gets a sacrifice fly after Jose Iglesias gets on base along with Brandon Lockridge. Iglesias a single, Lockridge with a walk. Elias Diaz hits a sacrifice, moving guys over. It actually looked like it was a weird play. Jose Ramirez messes up a little bit. Like, there was a little bit of an infield fly rule that occurred, but he does drop the ball, so everyone was like, what's going on here? But whatever. Tatis then hits a sacrifice fly. And then Luis Arraez, his first, can I say it? Like, first major moment of the season. Again, we're only 6 games in, but he gets a single to drive in the third run. And for me, that meant a lot because this Cleveland team is not the type of team that's going to come back from huge deficits. So every run counts because they usually have a great bullpen. They've got some good starting pitching that they put together. Although I don't think the Padres will be facing Tanner Bybee or anybody like that. Still love to see that. Then Machado gets a single and Luis Arraez gets thrown out at third base. But whatever, right? He's finding his way. I have very little doubt that Luis Arraez is going to find his way over the course of this season and be a 320, 330 potential hitter. I really do think that the thumb surgery and all that stuff is going to pay dividends, but whatever. Then bottom of the sixth, they get a few extra moments as well. Jackson Merrill draws a walk. Yuli Gurriel draws a walk. Again, maybe he's trying to figure some things out. And then Jake Cronenworth gets a single, allowing Jackson Merrill to score, which was great. Hayward comes in, strikes out. Elias Diaz flies out. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Then, bottom of the seventh inning, Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr. Walks, and then he steals second. Manny Machado walks, and he steals second, actually, by the way. Arraez grounded out in this one, by the way. Again, he's not fully activated yet, but what I really like, as tweeted by AJ Catsfell, the Padres have 3 of the top 6 on the early NL steals leaderboard. Fernando Tatis Jr., obviously, and Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts, less obviously. Tatis and Machado have 4, and Bogaerts 3. Wow. Really good stuff, right? And it's funny because Bogaerts has 3 and Tatis 4. One of my bold predictions that looks like it's probably not coming true, although it is early, was that Xander Bogaerts was going to steal more bases than Manny Machado because Bogaerts, good to remember, very fast, really athletic. He's got that good build. I thought that, like, what if Xander Bogaerts comes out and steals 20 bases and Tatis, in an effort to keep him healthy, as we often see in baseball, by the way, is that you will see some of these guys that struggle with health. They're like, you know what? I'm going to calm down with the stolen bases a little bit. That happens every now and then. But perhaps with the new rule changes and all that stuff, making it harder to pick off runners that you can't, re-engage more than 2 times, maybe he's like, screw it. Like, I want to get in position, especially when we have a batter like Arraez, where a single can bring me home if I steal second base. So love what I'm seeing from Tatis so far. Excellent stuff. Bogarts reaches on a fielder's choice, allowing Tatis to score. Merrill strikes out, but we have a little bit of a biff. We have a biff, folks. We love when we have a biff. Another error by the Guardians in this one. Just not a good defensive showing from them. Tatis ends up getting another ground out RBI in this one. So not exactly the best. The last 4 runs of this offensive showcase, not necessarily the best outside the Cronenworth one, but all in all, I will take it. And what I will take especially is the Padres bullpen, which once again balled out and I think is fully legit. If there's something that I had to, it's dangerous to go out on the limb and like really believe in something you're seeing and saying this is legit 100% like a Gavin Sheets like sort of moment, right? Like it's a little bit dangerous to do that. If there's one thing I had to go out on a limb on, I really think that it's this Padres bullpen, which we're going to talk about in just a second before we close things out, guys. But first, another word from our sponsors. And that sponsor, guys, is our good friends over at the Monarch. In fact, it is the Money Monarch. Oh yeah, that's right, folks. We're talking about Monarch Money because if you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining, buying random cool t-shirts of pop culture and anime that you like, online shopping, entertainment, going out to bars and stuff like that, celebrating your friend's 30th birthday and then having to recover for 2 days. I may be talking about myself, but let me tell you, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And they've got some surprising insights. When I started using it, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. And frankly, not gonna lie, I know it's part of the ad. I think that I always am starting to realize how much I'm spending on food delivery. Food, bars, Ubers, that type of stuff, the little convenient stuff, that's when they get you. But Monarch Money is here to kind of help you budget smarter and save more. And it's got an all-in-one convenience as well. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Nice deal, right? That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Go on and check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and most certainly vibing here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Guys, the bullpen for the Padres last night, we get some pretty good performances, right? In this one, we get Jeremiah Estrada, who's just, what a find Jeremiah Estrada has been. And frankly, not to get too general baseball on you guys, crazy that the Cubs gave up on this guy too quickly, right? Like, he basically started missing a bunch of time early on because he opted out. And, with I think he opted out, if I'm not mistaken. He had Tommy John surgery as well, but he also just had a little bit of a tough start to his career, right? Because of the COVID, season, obviously in 2020 and all that sort of stuff. He didn't opt out. I'm sorry. It was just the cancellation of the minor league season because of the pandemic in 2020. He had a weird start, and he started off okay in 5 appearances, right, with the Cubs, and then they kind of gave up on him after he struggled, and then he was sent outright to AAA, and then he was claimed in 2023 by the Padres, and he's been awesome ever since. Just amazing. And by the way, it's really funny, again, not to get too general baseball, like, what is the one thing the Cubs, our next opponent, by the way, best believe I will be bringing that up in those previews and game recaps, is that team just has a huge bullpen problem. Like, they desperately reached for Ryan Presley. They made that trade, and I'm not saying Ryan Presley is bad. He's still a pretty good relief pitcher, but they're like, we need something, right? And it's just amazing that they just gave up on Jeremiah Estrada, who could have been clearly a huge boost to that team. Also, a big boost to that team would have been if they spent some money. But whatever. Let me tell you guys, I love Jeremiah Estrada very much. He doesn't ball out like crazy in this one, right? He doesn't get like 4 strikeouts in a row and then just taunt the opposing team or anything like that. He only generated one whiff on his fastball, but whatever, it does not matter. Yuki Matsui, again, making an appearance. And I was scared for a second, guys. I ain't going to lie to you. because yesterday I talked a lot about Yuki Matsui and how his stuff is great. He's got a nice inverted break on his fastball when it's working, as long as he can disguise it well, the splitter and all that stuff. It works brilliantly. Like, guys can't hit his stuff. They hit below 200 and all of his stuff. And he scared me for a second here. He does get through it though. 0.2 innings. He only gets 2 outs, but they're both by way of the strikeout. He does lose one batter, right? By a walk, which is really where I think he started to unravel just a tiny bit, right? Of course, the Guardians don't end up scoring. Let me be very clear here, but it is worth bringing up that while he did do really well here, that walk to Bo Naylor, the catcher for the Guardians, not a great one, right? Then he does get the strikeout for Gabriel Arraez, but then they brought in Joenski Noel to hit for Daniel Sheeman. And I think that on 4 pitches, I think that he just pitched a little bit conservatively. I don't know if he was fully confident on throwing his fastball to a batter like Noel. And it just felt like he wasn't taking any chances there. And I don't mind that, because they were like, you know what? We don't want this game getting out of control. We're only up 4, right? And this guy, Big Christmas, as they call him, has crazy raw power, even if he's also a raw prospect in a lot of ways. And it just, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I think that was the type of batter that could crush a pitcher like Yuki Matsui if he's not locating that fastball right. And since he got behind in the account, I think he was like, you know what, let me just see if I could get him to bite on this. Otherwise, they're going to take me out anyway. I've labored through this inning, and I pitched yesterday. So they take him out and ends up working okay. Although Jason Adams scared me for a second. He hits Brian Rocchio and then loads the bases. He knew too. 1-1 pitch. He knew that's the last thing I had to do, right? Thankfully, though, gets Steven Kwan to strike out, which, again, really big moment, because Steven Kwan is not a strikeout guy. This is a guy who puts the bat on the ball. He's got some of the best bat-to-ball skills in all of baseball. Does not matter here. Maybe he's going to break out of that slump at some point, but so far, not against us, so I appreciate that. But it was scary. That was like the worst thing that you could have done, because then Jose Ramirez comes on after that. So that was like a turning point in the game. But overall, great moment for our guy, Jason Adam. Then he comes out in the next inning, strikes out Jose Ramirez after a little bit of a long at-bat, gets 2 guys to ground out, and Manzardo and Carlos Santana. And then, last thing we got to talk about is Omar Cruz. And let me tell you, folks, you want to have a debut? Have the debut that makes my dad text me. You know, granted, it's a little bit early. Is it earlier for him? No, it's still late for him. And he's an old guy, let me tell you. And he was balling for just a brief appearance here. He generates 3 whiffs on 5 swings. 2 from his changeup, 4 on his 4-seam fastball. He had a curve at one point in this one that I think was something out of Wanted. If anyone has ever seen that movie where they curve the bullets. Like, my God. Omar Cruz, amazing debut, right? Amazing debut. Now, let's be clear. I've talked about this a lot. I think that the Padres bullpen, that what I like about it is that there's actually low-key some people that can join it. Remember that we still have Sean Reynolds and Brian Owing when they come back from injury. But it's the addition of Alec Jacob, who has shown some spice, has shown some potential early on, even if the results haven't always been what we've wanted. And then you have Omar Cruz, who had a little bit of a moment last year, right? In the minors, he was doing okay, but he's still a wait-and-see guy. All of these guys are wait-and-see guys. But what I love is just that they have some pieces. Like, I don't know what's going on with Preller and these Padres right now, but they're just finding guys. And it was an end of a game. Garbage time isn't a term we use for baseball as much. We use it more for football, but it kind of was here. But even still, love that we got to see this kid. Give him some confidence, put him out there. And I really like what I saw. 94 miles per hour topping out at the fastball, 94.8 to be exact. I think that the curve was nasty, right? Like, it really, really looked nasty. And I am excited about Omar Cruz. Just what his potential might be. Just a guy that I'm excited to see again. I don't know if he's going to be a star or anything like that, but it's just cool that the Padres keep plopping these guys out. There's hope. I really like that. So again, some people keep reaching out, Javi, but why are you so negative about Robert Suarez? I'm negative because I think he could have a big regression. But what's fun, and this is why I'm being positive, is even if he does, I think there are so many guys in this bullpen, whether it be Estrada, whether it be Yuki, whether it be Jason Adam, whether it be Sean Reynolds when he comes back, Omar Cruz, Alec Jacob. I even think Wandy Peralta can bounce back a little bit. And he's been okay so far. I just think that, like, that's the sign of a good bullpen. That even if your closer, who was untouchable last year, at least in terms of ERA, he was great. I forgot if he wasn't named an All-Star last year. Was he? I don't remember. But his ERA of 2.77, right? Like, he was basically amazing for the entire first half. He was practically untouchable, and he throws super, super hard. The fact that I think that if that guy regresses, that we'll be fine, I think speaks volumes to this Padres team. And by the way, yes, he was an All-Star last year. Absolutely love to see it. Great W for the Padres. Last thing I want to close out on is that Tyler Wade cleared waivers and accepted an outright assignment to AAA El Paso. I imagine we're going to get like the Eggy Rosario mention at some point, maybe tomorrow, and that's when I'm going to crash out, probably on this podcast. I'm sort of kidding. Tomorrow, Dylan Cease, though. Very excited to see him go. And even if our guy Eggy is banished to the Shadow Realm, I'm still very excited to see what this Padres roster looks like as time goes along. I think that with Eggy and just in general, I just don't think that this is the last of this Padres team. And I do stand by my belief that Eggy as a DH is not bad. I really do. I really do. I understand loving Iglesias, though. That's fine. I think Iglesias can have a decent glove. He can play second. He's got speed. All the things that we talked about. But to me, I'm just wondering, is Yuli Gurriel like that? Now, I will tell you, he had a good game. He had a single in this one. He had a walk. So maybe he's proving me wrong, at least for now. But in general, I'm not quite seeing it. I'm not. I could be dead wrong. Be very clear, I could be dead wrong. But I'm excited. A little bit of an afternoon game tomorrow. That should be a lot of fun to cover. And I'm excited to talk to you guys on Thursday about that and potentially do a crossover for Friday's episode with our Cubs host here at Locked On. But whatever happens, guys, again, the vibes are very, very good here in Padre Land. Can't wait to talk about more. I'm surprised by how immediately awesome it has been to follow this team so far this year. I was always optimistic. They've got a lot of stars, and it's a team that cares. Ownership that's, for now at least, ownership that cares. A general manager that clearly does, right? It's really great. And I'm super stoked. I'm stoked that it's immediately we're back to Padres baseball and feeling pretty good about it, at least for now. Will they get the sweep? Maybe. We'll have to see. Dylan Cease is going tomorrow against Ben Lively. Not exactly the best pitcher in the world. So we'll see. But until that next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friday faithful homies, take care.